Daryela Elizabeth Valdez Rocha was born on July 4, 1998, in Mexicali, Baja California, Mexico. She was the youngest of three children of a woman named Elvira Rocha, who worked tirelessly as a domestic employee to ensure her family's well-being. There is limited information regarding Daryela's biological father, but it is known that her mother remarried, providing a father figure for her and her two older brothers, Isaac and Josephat. Life was not easy for Daryela as she grew up in a modest home where finances were tight. Despite the family's economic struggles, she worked hard to pursue a university education. At the age of 17, she began working to pay for her studies in law at the University of Baja California. Initially, Daryela assisted her mother in cleaning houses, but later decided to start her own business. She balanced her time between work, studies, and gym visits, as she enjoyed staying fit. Her friends described her as a loving, fun, and extremely dedicated young woman. Achieving a grade of 8 out of 10 in any subject was considered mediocre to her. At that time, she began a relationship with Honorio Gonzalez Garcia, a 70-year-old man known to be from Michoacan and enjoying a comfortable economic position. He had relatives in the United States, was divorced, and was the father of 6 grown daughters, who portrayed him as a hard-working and caring individual. Although the age difference sparked controversy and rumors among both families and friends, Daryela remained unfazed and fully embraced her relationship with him. However, their relationship was not a fairy tale. Despite his initial displays of kindness and respect, Honorio's violence and jealousy soon became apparent and ultimately turned into a constant pattern. Daryela found herself caught in a whirlwind of physical and psychological aggression. Neighbors witnessed the continuous mistreatment she endured, and even though she tried to conceal the signs of abuse, Elvira noticed and urged her daughter to leave him. Daryela attempted to end the relationship several times, but Honorio always managed to persuade her to return. After 5 years of enduring abuse, at the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, she finally made the decision to leave him. Following the breakup, she returned to her family's home on the Cecilia farm, located on the road to San Felipe, believing she would be safe. However, she soon realized that moving on from her past would not be easy, as Honorio began stalking her, frequently showing up at her home, workplace, and even at the gym. Although Daryela tried to move on with her life like any other young woman her age, things were about to take a turn for the worse. The events that unfolded marked a significant turning point. On the night of March 19, 2022, she went out to enjoy herself with friends. As she was leaving to return home, she was accompanied by her companions. However, a traffic light changed her course. When the green light turned red, her friends became trapped a few blocks away. Continuing alone in her vehicle toward her family's residence, she encountered the unwelcome presence of Honorio, who was waiting for her in his car. In a threatening tone, he ordered her to follow him home, warning her that she would regret it if she refused. Fear gripped Daryela, leaving her with no choice but to comply. On the way, she called a friend to explain her situation, who offered to contact the police. However, they encountered a major obstacle. Daryela was not at a fixed address, preventing authorities from intervening. Honorio's home became a trap, and she was forced to enter against her will. Inside, a jealousy-fueled argument erupted, resulting in Honorio brutally beating her. He threw her down the stairs and pressed a sharp object against her neck. In desperation, Daryela called her friends again for help, as she was now at a fixed location. This time, a patrol car arrived for a welfare check, but a supposed relative of Honorio answered the door and assured the officers that everything was fine. The agents left, inadvertently allowing Honorio to prevent Daryela from calling for help again. He locked her inside, and it wasn't until the following day that she managed to escape and return home. The bruises and contusions she sustained during this encounter with her ex-partner were stark evidence of the brutality of the attack. Despite the severity of her situation, Daryela chose not to report the aggression, a decision that Honorio exploited to continue his harassment. In one desperate act, he even tore down the fence surrounding Daryela's family home. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning of the nightmare. The beginning of this nightmare turned even darker. In July of that same year, the situation became extremely dangerous. While Daryela was at work, armed men, apparently sent by Honorio, opened fire in the establishment and attempted to kidnap her. Fortunately, they did not succeed. This time, Daryela decided to file a complaint not only for the threats and gunfire, but also for domestic violence. The first report recorded in the file was for the crime of gender-based violence. Daryela stated that Honorio would beat her, threaten her, and force her to engage in sexual relations with him. She described him as an aggressive alcoholic who was very violent. According to her testimony, she had never reported him before out of fear of his reaction, as he had thrown her down the stairs and threatened her with a knife. In the same complaint, Daryela explained that in mid-June, Honorio had shown up at her workplace, where she worked as a store coordinator, to threaten her, saying he would take her life if she did not comply with his demands. The intimidation intensified on July 2nd, the same day she filed the report, when two men arrived at the store and fired their weapons twice. The bullets hit the floor in front of her. The criminals told her they were acting on behalf of Honorio, who had paid them to kill her, and gave her instructions on what she should do to prevent this from happening. They instructed her not to go near the window because her ex-partner was watching her, and to open the emergency door to escape. However, when she attempted to do so, she could not open the door, so the criminals asked her to give them her cell phone to take it to Honorio. Daryela responded that she did not have it with her. Despite the seriousness of the reported facts, the authorities did not act with the urgency needed to protect Daryela from her aggressor, leaving the young woman in a constant state of risk. The life of the young woman had become a constant struggle against fear. Consequently, she was forced to change her phone number, change her job, and alter her daily routine. She even dropped out of college to take online classes in order to avoid being alone on the street where Honorio might find her. For the following months, it seemed that Daryela had found some peace of mind. She felt happy because she had finally finished her degree and believed that the nightmare with Honorio was finally over. However, her dreams and future plans would soon be shattered. On the afternoon of January 15, 2023, emergency services received an urgent call. The man on the other end identified himself as Honorio Gonzalez, reporting a crime that had occurred at his home. With a trembling voice, he stated that he had found his girlfriend dead. Uniformed officers arrived quickly at the house, where they found a horrific scene. Daryela was lying on the floor with multiple wounds, apparently inflicted by a sharp object. Next to her body, detectives found a 12mm hunting knife with stains on the blade, which they presumed was the weapon used by the attacker. Officers cordoned off the scene to collect evidence while Honorio, who presented himself as the victim's partner, offered his version of events in which he was completely exonerated. According to his testimony, he and Daryela had been alone in the house, sharing a peaceful moment, when suddenly, an ex-boyfriend of the young woman arrived and asked to be left alone with her to talk. Honorio claimed he agreed to this request and left the residence. He stated that shortly thereafter, he heard noises, and upon entering, he found Daryela lifeless, while the alleged ex-boyfriend fled the scene in a gray vehicle. When asked about the red stains on his pants, he claimed they were from when he manipulated her body to check if she was still alive. News of the crime spread rapidly on social media, shocking the entire community. When Elvira learned what had happened to her daughter, she rushed to the house, where she would experience one of the most painful moments of her life. Upon her arrival, she was confronted with an overwhelming scene. The place was surrounded by police who prevented Elvira from entering. She identified herself as Daryela's mother and begged to be allowed to see her daughter. but the officers refused, citing either protocol to preserve the crime scene or perhaps the mother's pain of seeing the body, among other possible reasons. Detectives assigned to the investigation began interviewing neighbors and reviewing security cameras near the scene. Residents denied having seen any cars in front of the house that afternoon. They also revealed an important fact. Honorio had changed his clothes just before the police arrived. Neighbors had already seen him in clothes completely stained red, and he had claimed to them that he had been in a fight. One neighbor offered the recordings from his security camera, and upon review, the police confirmed that there was no car matching the description given by Honorio. Additionally, no person was observed entering or leaving the residence at the time of the incident. As a result, Honorio was arrested and presented to the Baja California General Prosecutor's Office as the alleged perpetrator responsible for taking Daryela's life. While authorities awaited a judge to determine his legal status, the forensic reports on the body of the 24-year-old were pending. Raul Gonzalez Vaca, director of the Forensic Medical Service, provided shocking details about Daryela's injuries. It was revealed that she had suffered more than 30 wounds from a sharp weapon, 10 of which were located in the neck, having lacerated her arteries and proved fatal. He also noted that she had an excoriation on her head, likely caused by a blow from a fall. Furthermore, there were 9 injuries on her hands, which were presumed to be a result of a desperate attempt to defend herself. The expert pointed out that although Daryela had suffered extreme violence, she did not show signs of sexual aggression, and according to the results of the toxicological study, there were no harmful substances in her body. 3 days after the crime, on January 18th, Honorio was formally charged with the crime of femicide, and the case became the first documented femicide in Mexicali in 2023. During the hearing, Attorney General of Baja California, Ricardo Iván Carpio, detailed that investigations determined that Daryela and Honorio had arrived together at the house where the events took place. He even stated that there were witnesses who saw them holding hands and hugging. However, it was presumed that something went wrong inside the house, and an argument between the couple triggered the violence. The prosecutor warned that the man was arrested in flagrante delicto, with unmistakable signs of his participation in the crime. He had stains on his body, and the murder weapon was also found at the scene. Ricardo mentioned that in 2022, the victim had filed 2 complaints against her ex-partner for threats and domestic violence. However, he noted that everything indicated the relationship between the victim and her ex-partner had continued consensually. He warned that under these circumstances, authorities attended to the victim for follow-up, but it was not possible to continue since there was a reconciliation and Daryela had resumed her relationship with the accused. He commented that it was difficult to have a police officer at every home for such cases, since most assaults occur behind closed doors. But he acknowledged that there was always room for improvement in updating protection measures. After the intervention of the representative of the public prosecutor's office for Honorio, the defense attorney requested the control judge for a precautionary measure of house arrest, citing the accused's advanced age. After evaluating the evidence, Judge Eric Reyes denied the defense's request, noting that Honorio's home was a crime scene and that despite his age, he did not suffer from any health problems. She ordered that he be remanded in custody at the Social Reinsertion Center while awaiting his trial. While the hearing was taking place, Daryela's relatives said their last goodbye at the Angel Cemetery, located on the San Felipe Highway. During the burial, a musical group performed some of the young woman's songs while her family and friends mourned her loss. In the middle of the ceremony, her loved ones expressed not only their grief, but also their indignation at the Attorney General's remarks regarding the relationship between Daryela and Honorio. They even requested the official to make a public apology, denying that she had reconciled with her ex-partner, as she feared not only for her life, but also for her family's safety, given that the subject's threats were directed at all her relatives. According to one of Daryela's brothers, the man had threatened that he would kill them all and that he would get out of jail. For this reason, they had installed security cameras in their home. Although it seemed that the case was going to be resolved quickly, because Honorio had been arrested and the prosecution had solid evidence to bring him to trial, the man's lawyers relied on various legal maneuvers to slow down the process. In the following months, several hearings were postponed for various reasons, including the defendant's refusal to take a biological test requested by the prosecution. Another reason given by the defense was the illness of one of Honorio's lawyers, who allegedly contracted the virus that caused the worldwide health emergency. The main obstacle for the trial to move forward was the request of Honorio's lawyers for him to continue under the precautionary measure of house arrest, arguing that he was suffering from prison pressure. The victim's family had to undertake a long struggle in search of justice. Without intending to, Elvira became the voice of all the mothers who had lost their daughters to violence. The constant delays in the hearings caused discontent not only among Daryela's relatives, but also in all of Mexicali society, who took to the streets to protest against the notion that the crime should go unpunished. Demonstrations took place on July 18, 2023. Elvira attended, holding a teddy bear made from the fabric of one of her daughter's dresses. In the midst of the protest, Daryela's mother expressed her indignation, feeling it was unfair that the authorities could even consider granting house arrest when her daughter would no longer return home. She added that no one could guarantee that during this process, Honorio would be securely monitored in his home, nor could they ensure that he would not regain his power and threaten his family again, as he had done before. He also mentioned that Honorio had the resources to leave the country and even flee to the United States. He enjoyed privileges inside the prison, as his family was paying for him to be housed in a cell away from the rest of the inmate population, and was also covering various benefits. Elvira detailed to the media the aggressions her daughter suffered, not only during the 5 years of the relationship, but also after the breakup. Honorio continued to harass her, changing her university, school, and gym. He threatened her and shouted that he would kill her. When she tried to defend herself, authorities did nothing, not even at the gas station. Now, they have him there like a well-cared-for prince, enjoying all the benefits just because he is older. But what does that matter? He is a murderer, the wretch. Elvira's voice was joined by that of Congresswoman Michelle Sanchez Allende, who urged the President of the Superior Court of Justice and the Judiciary Council of Baja California, as well as the State Attorney General, to ensure that the investigation and proceedings were treated with a gender perspective. The legislator also advocated for precautionary measures against Honorio and for the safety of Daryela's family, as several of the accused's relatives had threatened them. He also championed the project initiated by Daryela's family, which mandated training for public servants to prevent and eradicate all forms of violence against women in Baja California. Through this law, the aim was to raise awareness and provide a more effective response to situations of gender violence. Spokespersons for the Secretary General emphasized the importance of the initiative presented by the Congresswoman, not only to safeguard women's lives, but also to ensure that officials know how to act and support victims. Due to the social pressure and the history of domestic violence and constant threats from Honorio to Daryela's family, the court ratified the preventive measures against the 70-year-old man in December 2023, nearly a year after the crime. Honorio's daughters, accompanied by their lawyers, held a press conference to express their support for their father. During the media meeting, they described Honorio as a hardworking and loving man who had never been violent towards them. They asserted that he raised them with love and respect and cared for and protected them at all times, even claiming he was also kind to Daryela. Both family members and Honorio's lawyers denied threatening the young woman's relatives, insisting they were the most invested in ensuring the process continued. However, the defense team continued to introduce obstacles, dragging out the proceedings, as the trial would not commence until January 2024. Honorio's lawyers requested a new forensic report to be conducted by experts from their team, asserting that this expert opinion would clarify the exact timing of the events and corroborate Honorio's version, which claimed that a third person had been present in the house that afternoon and was responsible for the crime. The lawyers emphasized that up to that moment, their client had not pleaded guilty, had not been convicted, and there was no sentence. Therefore, he was entitled to the presumption of innocence and access to a fair defense. They reiterated their request to modify the precautionary measure so that he could await his trial at home. In February 2024, an online hearing was held that lasted approximately 5 hours. During this time, the defense attorneys argued that Honorio was a senior citizen with health issues, including angina pectoris and severe depression. They claimed that he could not sleep in prison due to lack of air, although his oxygenation was reported as normal. Additionally, the defense presented 5 interviews with Honorio's direct neighbors to persuade the judge that he had lived in Mexicali for over 40 years and had no intention of fleeing. In contrast, the prosecutor handling the case outlined the reasons why, despite being a senior citizen, Honorio should be considered a dangerous individual who needed to remain incarcerated. The prosecutor noted that Honorio could leave the state since he was originally from Michoacan, raising fears that he might evade justice. On February 7th of that same year, Isaac, Daryela's older brother, reported to the prosecutor's office that one of the defense attorneys had informed him that Honorio had numerous contacts and supporters, raising concerns that he could not only escape, but also retaliate against the family. Isaac detailed that, in addition to harassing his sister while she was alive, Honorio had also threatened their family multiple times, claiming he would burn down their house with them inside or make them disappear. He described Honorio as a violent individual with economic means, asserting that if he were released, he would pose a significant threat to their family. Isaac recounted how Honorio had specifically threatened him, his mother, stepfather, and siblings, stating that he had the resources to hire people for such actions. He recalled a previous incident where Honorio had sent 2 individuals to attempt to assassinate the entire family. The family was deeply afraid that, if released, Honorio could mobilize his contacts to target them. "We are certain that if this person is released, they will be taken to the United States, and they will never be found." After hearing arguments from both sides, Judge Erica Reyes Gomez declared the defense's petition inadmissible, emphasizing that the request was outside the jurisdiction of a state court. In response to the judge's refusal, Honorio's legal representatives filed an amparo request, which posed yet another obstacle to starting the trial, according to the victim's family lawyers. This legal strategy was intended to buy time and allow them to request a change in precautionary measures again. They explained that the law stipulates that if a defendant remains in pretrial detention for 2 years without a sentence, they may request a change in precautionary measures while awaiting the resolution. In March 2024, Daryela's relatives met with representatives from the State Human Rights Commission to seek support. Following the meeting, commission members announced the potential for issuing a recommendation to review the investigation report and to determine the reasons for the lack of follow-up on the 2 complaints that Daryela had filed. A month later, in April 2024, after having been postponed 4 times, the intermediate hearing was finally held in courtroom number C of the Rio de Janeiro Justice Center. The trial was resumed during this session, where both the prosecution and the defense presented the evidence they intended to submit in court. However, the commencement of the oral trial was contingent on the federal judge's decision regarding the amparo filed by the defense, which would determine the start date of the trial. As of early August 2024, no response has been issued. Daryela's loved ones continue to fight for justice, hoping that her case will serve as an urgent call to society to raise awareness about violence against women and the critical need for their protection. They also advocate for the implementation of effective policies and stronger laws that provide greater support to victims. Ultimately, Daryela's family members aspire for her story to inspire real and lasting change in society, allowing all women to live in a world free from fear and violence. Well, everyone, this brings us to the end of today's video, which covers a deeply saddening case that still lacks closure. While there is already a culprit in jail, the trial has yet to take place, and it may take a considerable amount of time to proceed, as this individual and their lawyers have extended the process unnecessarily. We hope to soon provide updates on the outcome, including the length of the sentence this person may face, ensuring that Daryela's family receives the justice they deserve. For now, I have nothing more to say except to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again for another case. Goodbye.